No, I'm very happy to have this conversation because many times we speak about youth as opposed to speaking to youth. Now, with regard to Muslim Youth on Child Marriage Act, we have Ruqaqyah Abdullah. She's a member of the executive. She's also head of the Women's Committee of the Islamic Dawah Movement. We also have Sheikh Isa Jeziah. He's a holder of a bachelor's in judicial studies from the Al-Qura University, Makkah, Saudi Arabia. We say good morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Dike.
What are some of the things that go through your mind when you're hearing the debate that's raging about child marriages in Trinidad and Tobago?
I kind of feel as if sometimes the discussion is a bit unbalanced. We are talking about child marriages, yes, and we recognize that there are issues related to that. But there are also bigger issues affecting youth as well. So we have a lot of teenage pregnancies happening. A lot of children are committing abortions as well, and the trends are increasing. So you have increasing number of teenage pregnancies, increasing number of abortions. But we are not fully addressing all of those issues. So we're not having that kind of emotional discussion about these issues as well.
But some people might argue almost all that we're having is emotional discussions because we don't have the facts. So people are kind of shooting from the hip and say, okay, well, this is my feeling. And many times when you don't have facts to jump on as opposed to emotions, the conversation is kind of lost because people lose their rationale, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are actually some facts, and I was able to find from the Ministry of Gender and Youth to Child Development that the total number of teenage pregnancies from 2008 to 2015 is 15,231. And they compiled data over that period of time, and it has been steadily increasing. So the number of teenage abortions between 2011 and 2015 is 743, also an increasing trend. However, the number of marriages that happen for minors over that period of time is 0.6% of all marriages.
Your thoughts on it, Isa?
My thoughts on the issue really, it seems to me that there's a bit of a fetishization, or should I say a bit of a sensationalization of the issue. Not to say that it's not something that needs to be dealt with. If there's abuse happening, if women's education is being compromised, of course, as Muslims, we agree that these issues need to be dealt with. But there seems to be a disproportionate focus on something that doesn't seem to be the real issue, as Ruqaqyah pointed out quite rightfully. The stats themselves show that we're so focused on one particular possible malady, right? And that's something that we need to discuss, as you mentioned, not based on emotions, but based on fact and based on having studied the issue. So I think you asked at the start, what is my take on how we treat with the issue? So far, really, we've had what it seems to me as a really emotional response, as you rightly pointed out. And we haven't really addressed the issue with stoic review as we should be addressing the issue, based on knowledge, based on studies, based on discussion and open discussion. So I feel that as a nation, there's a certain level of immaturity in the way we've been handling the issue.
Does your position, has it been impacted by your time specifically in Saudi Arabia?
Well, first of all, the question is what my position is. I wouldn't want to give a position that is in opposition or to throw the elders under the bus. But in our pool of the youth, by and large, most of the youth, the vast majority of educated Muslim youth, they don't have a problem with raising the age from 12. But I feel as though there's a notion amongst Muslims, especially the youth, who are the ones directly being affected by such changes in legislation. There's a feel that their opinions are not being regarded, and that it's almost as if you're saying to them, you don't have a choice in your right. We're trying to empower people, we're trying to empower the youth and empower women by taking away their choice. And in that, there's a problem. So I mentioned that at least on a hypothetical level, there isn't a problem with setting an age as far as I have studied. And there are many scholars, Islamic jurists, from a long time ago, from the middle of the 19th century, there was an age set in the Ottoman Empire to 15 years of age, right? And that was something that happened before the Western civilizations even brought it up as an issue in legislation. So it's not something that's foreign to Muslims. The idea of protecting young people and protecting women and empowering women through education. It's not something that's foreign to Islamic law or foreign to Islam. But the question is, what's the best way to go about it? Is it by just taking 18 and saying, okay, we're going to go with that, or are we going to study this and see what's best for our nation?
Do you think sometimes it seems as though that this is almost a personal attack against specific religions, Ruqaqyah?
Yeah, it seems to be that case. And we're not really looking at it from the fact that legally we are saying that the legal age of consent is 18. However, we know that young people are having sex. And we are saying that it is wrong for Muslims to say that if they feel the age of consent for marriage should be less than 18, then therefore it's a religious perspective and they should be attacked for it. However, we're not offering any tangible solutions. We're not discussing the real issues. So yes, we're going to have children having sex at the age below the age of 18. And as Isa mentioned, we are taking away the right of choice. So if, for example, we can try juveniles as adults, and so you would go to the court and you would let them know and you would put forward a fact or a discussion as to how the child is capable of committing a crime and have the mentality of an adult, then if it is that we're saying that the age of 18 must be the age of marriage alone, there is no clause, there is no option, you can't take it to a family court and discuss it, then as Isa said, you are taking away that right of choice. So if you have two 16-year-olds who get pregnant and they say that they want to get married, we're saying that is not an option. You have to, and if you're Muslim, you don't want your children living in sin, essentially. So what choice are you really left with? So you don't get it up and you take it to court and to say, well, we have this scenario and let's consider it.
Well, Isa, you addressed the issue in terms of your position. Ruqaqyah, I'll ask you the same. What is your specific position on the matter?
Well, as Isa did mention, I think a lot of the elders are having discussions about this, and it does feel like as if the youth are not really involved. My personal opinion is that I have no problem with it being the age of 18. But I think I recognize you taking away that opportunity for people to decide, well, this is what I want, or this is what I'm capable of, and totally disregarding of how they feel about it. So I think if it was to come back to people and come back to religious groups, let us have open discussions and let us talk about it, then yes, I would feel as if we were considered, and I don't feel as if that discussion has been had as yet.
Well, how does that discussion happen in a way that is open and involves the youth?
Well, we need to reach out to youth groups. This discussion has been ongoing in the Muslim community, as far as I know, since 2012. I do not remember any young people being involved in those discussions. We really had older people talking about it. This is an issue that's going to affect and impact on young people, and we needed to have been part of that discussion. And as Isa mentioned, we did a quick poll yesterday, and out of 100 people, 80-something percent, 90-something percent believe that it should be 18. So young people are okay with it being 18, but we want to be a part of that discussion.
And it's interesting you spoke about the Ottoman Empire, and that also brings the question of context and convention into place.
Right.
And how do we say, okay, well, we're not necessarily being purist, but at the same time, we're not deviating from the tenets of our faith or how it is we live our life. How do you walk that line, sir?
Well, as I mentioned, it's not something new. And really and truly, treating with the issue of setting a minimum age for marriage is not breaking any new ground. I've attended a assembly of jurists where they discussed the issue, and a paper was put forward setting a minimum age of 15. They thought that to be relevant, and showing by Islamic evidences why this is not going against the tenets of Islam, this is not compromised. And of course, there are different views on this issue, right? But this is a very valid view that's being espoused by scholars, legitimate scholars of the past and of present, that setting a minimum age is not an issue, but that has to be done not with an emotional mindset or just simply, it seems in Trinidad sometimes, we do like Massa say, jump, so we say how high, right? No, we need to study the issue for ourselves and see what's best for us. Something that I would have liked to point out, that we do as a nation recognize via the Children Act 2012, we do recognize that there is something of an issue that needs to be handled where you have the Romeo and Juliet clause, right? That's clause 20, which allows sexual relationships between teenagers, right? So the question is, what message do we send to the youth when we say it's okay, Romeo and Juliet, it's okay to have sex, just don't get married?
And on that note, we say thank you very much, Issa, Jeziah, as well as Ruqaqyah, Abdullah. Thank you for your presence, and thank you for putting these things out, because like we started off saying, many times we talk about as opposed to talking to youth.